Welcome to our session today, and we are going to deal with friction. We are going to deal with the force of friction. Force of friction. What is friction? We're going to see the definition of friction. Friction is a force which opposes or tends to oppose the relative motion of two surfaces in contact with each other. That is the definition of the term friction. Now we want us to see now how we can measure friction. Measuring of frictional forces. We calculate the weight of bodies in contact and the force between them. This relationship is called the coefficient of friction. Coefficient of friction is defined as the ratio of the force needed to overcome friction, that is Ff, to the perpendicular force between the surfaces, Fn. Hence, you can say the coefficient of friction can be calculated by taking Ff divided by Fn. Let us see an example. Of how we can calculate the coefficient of friction. The example will be guided by a box of 50 kg dragged on a horizontal floor by means of a rope tied to its front. The coefficient of kinetic friction between the floor and the box is 0.3. Now the question will be, what is the force required to move the box at uniform speed? The solution will be guided by the formula for calculating the coefficient of friction, so that we make the force required to drag the box the subject of the formula. We convert the weight from kilograms to Newton, then we multiply the coefficient of friction with the force or the weight of that particular box. We end up getting 150 Newton. Let us see the advantages of friction. Friction has advantages as well as disadvantages. We're going to begin with the advantages of friction. So friction helps us to walk. That is number one. Walk, to turn, and to stop. Secondary, friction helps us in transfer of energy. Friction also helps in making fire. Yes. Friction also helps to hold on to objects. When you are holding objects, there is a force of friction in action. Let's see the disadvantages of friction. Disadvantages of friction. Number one, friction produces unwanted heat. Yes, there is a lot of heat that is unwanted that comes as a result of friction. Friction reduces the efficiency of machines. Number three, another disadvantage, friction produces unwanted noise. Then number four, friction causes wear and tear. The reason as to why a tire of a vehicle or of a car will wear out is because of friction. Your shoe will wear out because of friction. Let us see now. Let us look at the rule of friction. The rules of friction. We have many and so many different rules pertaining to or regarding to friction. So friction is always parallel to the contact surface and in the opposite direction to the force tending to producing motion. Number two, friction depends on the nature of the surface and material in contact with each other. Sliding or kinetic friction is less than the static friction. Static friction is friction before the body starts to slide. Then number four, kinetic friction is independent of speed. Friction is independent of the area of contact. Friction is proportional to the force pressing the two surfaces together. Those are the laws of friction. Let us see the application of friction. One of the application of friction, the basic thing that we know about friction matchstick. When you are writing fire using matchstick, the principle that applies there is friction. Chewing food also applies, or friction is involved. Brakes, brakes of a bicycle, brakes of a motorcycle or a vehicle. Motion of motor vehicles also applies friction. And then lastly, walking. Walking also applies friction.